So even though there was a beta build last week, this is when the beta started properly. They finally invited a bunch of people. We've been starting the video with that, and you can see there's actually human beings playing the video game. This is at 10 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday. So it's people in dungeons, other people testing Mythic Plus, I'm sure, doing actual content that the game offers finally. So there's even a guy leveling. How about that? So really cool to see. Unfortunately, a lot of those people they all got in together. They all have a rapport with each other. A little antisocial myself, if you know me. So I don't really know anybody in the beta, and I've tried pugging like I would on live, and there's 0 people interested in that. So what we did this weekend instead was we did some solo Mythic Plus testing. But I did a lot of stuff off stream where we just kind of messed around with legendaries, and it's all been focused at Blood DK. Now I feel like it's time to start worrying a lot about Blood DK, and we're still going to test other tanks. So we kind of skipped the whole, queue for a bunch of dungeons and test all the stuff that the other tanks have to offer in them. And that's kind of because Blizzard did that. Like, they skipped right over Heroic and Mythic 0 and went right to Mythic Plus. I mean, all of that's in there. You can do a Heroic dungeon, you could do a Mythic 0, but there's nobody doing them. I mean, maybe 1 or 2 people have tried, but everybody's either just doing regular dungeons or they're going right to Mythic Plus. So I think next week we'll do some more dungeons on more tanks, get the feel of how they work with legendaries, and hopefully we get the logs working. This week, for some reason, the logs were working. I also have this version of details, which doesn't work either. I don't know how people got it to work. I'm not sure what I'm doing wrong, but either way, I did do a fair amount of testing on Blood DK this week, and I have to say I'm very excited about what the future holds for this class. Now, I'm properly ready to say that out loud, and we're going to talk a little bit about why right now. Okay, so first things first, a lot of people have asked me how Blood DK feels. Like, one of the most common questions was, compared to BFA, where do you think Blood DK is at? I think Blood DK is better in every conceivable way. Okay. One of the main problems that they have in BFA right now, first of all, is a very big weakness on the pull, because you have to do a couple globals to get going with death strikes, unless you're doing you're walking into the pull with 10 stacks of bone armor, you're never properly complete. There's always some globals to get set up, you know what I mean, regardless. So everybody agrees, I think, that Blood DK is the weakest tank in the first global. In fact, famously, the Orgoza encounter from Emerald Palace was that was a boss that you could literally get one shot, even with Vamp Blood and stuff up, because you needed your actual spells to help you, and the first global you didn't have those. So I think Blood DK looks like the most improved class in that way. Okay, and I don't know everything about all the other specs like DPS and healers, but I would be surprised to see one that has improved in their biggest weakness so severely. And the reason I say that is because, first of all, they got, of course, Rune Tap, which, if you haven't seen, used to be a talent, but it's now back. It's now off the GCD. So a lot of the stuff that we might know about Blood DK has been covered in previous videos. So again, I'm assuming you watched these, but Rune Tap, just something you can literally use on the pull, lasts a few seconds, 20% damage reduction. The other main thing is, of course, Blood Tap. That's going to give you a lot more access to runes. A lot of times you might walk into a pack rune starved from the previous pack. Happens a lot in some Mythic Plus dungeons in BFA. I always think about it when I'm doing it, and I'm always thinking about not going into the pack with 100% runic power, maximum runic power, you know what I mean, to make sure, because I know otherwise I'll be starved for both resources. So, but the main thing that really helped them is I do feel like they are going to get a lot of benefit from certain Covenant abilities. Okay, now the Covenant ability we tested this week, and the one that I like maybe the most, is this Death's Due. Okay, now this is from the Ardenweald Covenant, the Night Fae. Okay, and I tell you what, I'm not gonna lie, one of the main reasons I like it so much is because of how freaking gorgeous it is. If you haven't seen it thus far, I'll show it to you right now. Absolutely beautiful, and it replaces Death and Decay. Okay, now I'm not gonna tell you this is the Covenant you should pick, obviously, because I might not even pick this Covenant. The Ventir one's looking excellent. The Necrolord looking like it could be a very, very strong one too. I'd really just, in my initial opinions, it seems like the Bastion one is probably the only one I'm not considering. And there's a lot more to consider than just the main ability, so we'll see what the soul bonds look like. We might take a harder look at that too. We have to make 4 Death Knights to check that out. But either way, Death Stew served me very, very well this week, and it's because it effectively creates a 15% damage reduction on any pack that you're fighting for any extended period of time, which, I mean, I think for the initial months of BFA especially, also, I was meaning to say Shadowlands, but it's also true for every expansion since Legion, basically. The beginning months of the expansion is when Death Knight is the weakest. Like, Death Knight gets really powerful at the end of expansions. Like, the more stats they get, the more capable of like legitimately soloing things they become. So in the beginning, you're struggling to get stats. You're struggling to find ways to reduce damage without death strike usage. You know what I mean? Like, besides, your death strikes aren't going to be powerful enough in the beginning. Blah blah blah. So this is a really good stopgap for that. It might not be looked at as the best power mathematically, and it's probably a little overvalued on my end because I don't use Death and Decay very well, apparently. I'm just learning this now, honestly. I didn't realize this, but there's a lot of times when I let this buff drop off, and if I was using Death and Decay properly on multi-target packs, that would never happen. So another fault that I have. But yeah, basically it stacks up. So if you can watch the VODs and stuff, it stacks up every second it ticks for damage. It also makes you take 1% more reduced damage from any mobs that are getting stacked. So like, but there's a couple things to consider. So like, mobs might enter it late. You know what I mean? So like, one mob has 1%, another mob has 2%, 4%, 8%. Like, different mobs have different percentages, but one way or the other, as long as you keep Death and Decay down for the duration of the pack, it will eventually get to 15%. But it does more than just that. It also transfers that to you as strength, which can also stack up to 15%. And that's on a different like tick factor, I guess is what you say. Like, as long as you're hitting a single mob, you're getting a stack of this up to 15% strength. So that means that even if you're not hitting, say you got 5 mobs in a pack, even if you're not hitting all 5 mobs, they're not having their damage reduced by 15%, but you're still constantly refreshing this 15% extra strength, which, as we know, is more defense, more offense too, obviously. So it's like, this is a really, really, I feel like this might be a really stable pick for Blood DK early on, and I have to say, I just love the way it looks. It's just gorgeous. So very, very happy with this Covenant. I'm going to be trying more in the future. We did already test them all out in Torghast and other stuff, but like, I like to go into dungeons with them, see how they feel in dungeon content. And but the thing about this one is that I think it's actually really good for raiding too. Like, this is good everywhere, right? This is not just good in 5-mans, which I do feel like that would be the case for both the Kyrian, or not the Kyrian one, because that's the one that's the opposite. But anyway, the one that I feel like that the most on is the Revendreth one, the Venthyr. I feel like that would be extremely, extremely good in 5-mans, and then it would be like, well, it's kind of shitty for raids, honestly. Like, I don't know. But this feels like it'd be good everywhere, right? So it's like, people are complaining about this. I don't care. I'm going to pick the one that I like the most, and I'm going to use it the best I can, regardless. Like, I mean, you still have ups and downs. It's a Blood DK. You're obviously better in 5-mans than you are in raids at times, better in raids than 5-mans at times. That's just how the class works, how the game works. So I'm not concerned with this, but it is something to consider. So I think the best pound for pound pick right now is this one, because it's going to help you everywhere if you're doing raids too. But anyway, the main thing that I learned about it is that it's versatile. It helps, a lot of damage reduction can really add up now with all these different class abilities. Like, I mean, if you got everything going, you got this 15% damage reduction just passively. And another thing to keep in mind here is that it lasts 15 seconds. Well, D&D, here, let's put something in here. So you'll see the buff here, you see? So it lasts 15 seconds. See, it's going to keep stacking up. Now, it's going to keep refreshing every time D&D does damage. But the buff lasts 15 seconds. So that means you have another 15 seconds after D&D is over to refresh it. And that is something I was not doing somehow when I was soloing. So there you go. You see, so now it's just going to keep refreshing. Meanwhile, the stacks keep going up on my end, 15% strength. And, you're going to keep seeing that. So here, I'll pull even another mob in here. And we'll put that one up too. And you see that one is getting the stacks, of course, at a different rate, but, the same percentage. And this just keeps refreshing. Every time I get a tick of D&D to hit a player, or at the target, this keeps refreshing. So it's pretty cool. I really like it. And, of course, like I said, it doesn't hurt that it's just absolutely fantastic looking. Now, one other thing I definitely want to talk about today is The fears have been realized. I guess I don't really know what to say about this, man, because I've been talking about it for freaking 15 weeks now. I've had people call me an idiot. I've had people say it's not going to blah blah blah. We're talking about being able to take a undead and sacrifice it in Mythic Plus dungeons. And guess what? That still works, okay? It's a Mythic Plus dungeon. You kill the mob instantly and you get count, okay? You want the proof? It's in the VOD. Check it out. We did it many, many times. You could pick up a mythic. This is a mythic dungeon. You could pick up a mob and you could freaking sacrifice it and you get count. You don't even have to do damage to the mob, which is something I was thinking as well. Like I was thinking like, oh, well, you probably have to actually do damage to the mob to get count, right? Like, because how it works in Motherlode, those robots, the jockeys jump in the robots. If you at least do damage to the jockeys before they jump in the robots, it counts as their death when you kill the whole thing. So you get 2 allocations of count, right? If you don't know that by now, now you do. So I thought maybe it would work the same way. Like, oh, we'd have to do damage to the mob first. So I tried that, then I tried the opposite. It doesn't matter. It still works the same. Still lasts 5 minutes. Still has all the abilities. I mean, this is a couple of cool abilities, like this crazy knockback, which didn't actually work, but still aggro and stuff. I don't know what's going on here, but anyway, yeah, so I have to say that I'm really satisfied with the situation of Bloody K, and I am very, very much on the... I'm ready to say it publicly. They're going to be overpowered this expansion. I don't really see any way around it. Like, okay, obviously this control undead thing, this might still get changed, but unless they literally make it not possible to control undead, which they might, like they might actually just go all out and change. You never know, right? You never know what they're going to change. But they might actually be like the best tank, like by a mile in some of these dungeons. Because some of the stuff that you can control, and even if you don't get count for killing it, like, it depends on what they change, but it's just like, there's so many freaking, this aggro, keeps aggroing this, but there's so many freaking mobs that are undead in these dungeons. It's insane. Like, I'd say probably 50% of the dungeons have undeads, right? So it's not like BFA. And I can't imagine that there isn't going to be some powerful combination there, some big play that you can make with that, even if it's not, even if it doesn't end up being, like, super powerful. I have to imagine that that's what it's going to look like. So I think we're here, man. I think Bloody K looking really powerful in BFA. And I also would say one more thing about this situation. I feel like they are... new appearance. That's funny. Anyway, I feel like they are the tank with the best legendaries too. So we'll probably cover this more succinctly at some point in the future when it's more finalized. But we tested all the legendaries this week. I did a little bit on stream, but I tested a lot off stream. And I'll tell you what, this one is freaking amazing. I had no idea how powerful this was going to be. I guess I should have realized. But this does a lot of damage. Like, this is a lot of freaking... It's like doubled my damage, man. Frost Fever and Virulent Plague together were like probably 20, maybe more than that, percentage my damage. So this is a really, 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 really good legendary. And I don't know what other classes have anything like this. But I mean, this basically, I mean, this was a huge DPS increase. I don't know how else to say it. It doesn't seem like the rest of the stuff works, though. Like, first of all, some oddities about it. When I use Death's Caress, it does not apply the other 2 diseases. It was only Blood Boil, so that's probably a bug. But yeah, so Blood Boil applies it. Here, I can show you that real quick. Right, these non-elites here. So you see, I have the legendary on. Here it is. There, you see, it doesn't have it. See what I mean? I put it up with Death's Caress, and now I Blood Boil, and now it puts it up. But you see, it's supposed to, you know, basically when the mob dies, it's supposed to splash. And then Frost Fear, it doesn't actually say. Apparently, Frost Fear is supposed to give you like runic power or something. I don't actually know. Don't play Frost DK. But like, it's supposed to do more than this, and it's not. So I don't know if that's the case or not or what. But I mean, it does a lot of damage, guys. Like, you can tell if you watch the VOD or any actual content with this on. It's pretty nuts how much damage this does. How much this increases your damage. Some other things. Dancing Rune Weapons application of Blood Plague does not get doubled. I would really, if that was the case, best legendary, right, by a mile. Still might be, but Dancing Rune Weapon double Blood Plague, historically very powerful in the past. I was hoping that it was going to double Frost Fever and whatever Virulent Plague as well. It does not happen, but that's fine. That would be cool, but maybe it's a bug, maybe it's not. But yeah, otherwise, it seems like ridiculously strong physical, like damage, just like actual damage increase legendary. I don't think there's one out there for the other tanks that's equal. I don't know. I haven't properly tested them all, but let me know if you guys know of one. And then they just have a great slew. Like, I don't feel like they have a bad legendary. So this one is probably like, if you remember Legion, this was the Brynador's, the wrists or whatever. Really, really, really stable legendary. Like, just free death strikes over the course of a few uses. You know what I mean? So 15% of the maximum runic power spent if it heals you for more than 10% of your maximum health. And now with, ironically, before, as long as you had some versatility, it was always going to do that. But now it's just like actually always going to do it, because if you take Voracious, it increases the death strike healing. So that takes the minimum death strike, which you can't see because of that. Let's see. I just want to show this. Where is it? Oh, is it in this one? Yeah. So anyway, it takes the minimum of 10% maximum health, 20% on top of 7%, which is normal. It takes it to 10% apparently. So yeah, so now it's literally just always, as long as you have the talent there, it's literally always going to work. I think it would literally always work before anyway, but either way, now it's actually like mathematically the case. So that's really powerful. Then you got this one, which we used a good amount. We started the dungeon testing with this on because I felt like it was going to be a really good offensive and defensive component. It's right now it's reducing it by 3 seconds. For some reason, it says negative 30 seconds. People pointed this out a while back too, that it's some kind of like percentage error. But yeah, it's 3 seconds. So every time, and I guess I didn't actually know this until Jix brought it up, but there's like a 1 second ICD on Bone Shield being consumed. I think that's somewhat new. I don't remember when they did that, but anyway, guess that's the case. So every time Bone Shield is consumed, so that's 1 second. Every 1 second you're in combat, 3 seconds gets removed from Dancing Rune Weapon. I'm not 100% sure that's correct, but that's what we were talking about on stream. And then also, that the extra bonus there, rune regeneration rate by 40% for 10 seconds. So really powerful legendary. And if you're wondering about the stats, you can just put your own stats on it. That's why they all have haste first on them, in case anybody's wondering. Because like in Legion, some of the discussion about the legendaries was like, oh, this one doesn't really have good stats, even though it's got a good power. That's not a concern anymore. So another great one. I think that's going to be amazing for 5-mans. This is the one, the belt from Legion as well. But again, I think one of the reasons that belt was so good was because it also had passive leech on it. So this one, like, it's cool because Hard Strike reduces the remaining cooldown of Vamp Blood by 2 seconds. You're going to use a lot of Hard Strikes, ideally. But I just don't know how good it is, because there's another one that's really good for Vamp Blood. This one might be... I used to use this belt, the Gorfiend's belt in Legion, for soloing. Like, it was best in slot for soloing. It was amazing. And I think it's probably still going to be good for that kind of content. Not that it's going to exist too often, but I just don't really think it's going to be very good. I mean, if you're not aware, they buffed Red Thirst, right? So it's going to be like, if you use both of those again, I think it would probably be equal to the combo of Red Thirst plus whatever the essence, Vision of Perfection Minor. That's kind of what we've been running a lot in BFA. And I think it's probably going to be about the same. You know what I'm saying? So obviously we're getting nerfed in that way, losing uptime on Vamp Blood, but it's obviously, power is going to come. So I don't know. I probably won't use this one just because unless I'm soloing, I don't think it's going to equate to that much, but it is cool. Again, a cool option. Then here's this one, which I absolutely love. Vampiric Blood ability also affects you and your party members for 50% of the, affects all, not you, obviously it already affects you, but affects all party members for 50% of the effect it has on you. So, I mean, I think this is probably the best legendary in the video game for rating. I mean, I don't, you know what I mean? Like, I could think of probably 9 different encounters that I would use in BFA that this would have been ridiculously overpowered on. You know what I mean? The problem is, all party members. Now, that's something I've yet to test. If anybody knows for sure, does that mean literally only the 4 other players in your physical party of 20 players? Or does it mean actual raid? I don't know how it works. But even if it's only the 4 people in your party, it's still ridiculous. Like, this is a huge... First of all, it can be a huge amount of health, but it also increases the healing they take, right? I mean, what's the actual baseline? increases all healing and absorbs received by 35% for 12 seconds. So that means presumably whatever 50% of 35 is. What's that? 78%? No, that can't be right. But I don't know. Either way, it's going to be really freaking powerful in raids, in any content like that, where you're going to be constantly, like a lot of raid fights, you're just constantly taking damage from things. So constantly receiving more healing. And then, of course, with Red Thirst, you're going to have Vamp Blood up quite often. You know what I mean? It's probably going to be about a 1-minute CD, I'd assume, with how Red Thirst is working now, about a 1-minute CD. Unfortunately, you can only use one legendary, but if you could use both of these, putting these together would be ridiculous, I'd imagine. But anyway, it's just a really cool concept. So we talked about this before with other tanks, and even if they get good ones, like that's great. Like reduction ones are great, I'm sure, but like Vamp Blood you're using all the time, it's not a reduction. You know what I mean? So it's like this is just the best one because it's just going to constantly be used for you and constantly giving benefit of healing to other people in your group, one way or the other. So. Then there's some good utility ones like this. It's kind of like a poor man's conflict and strife major in BFA. And of course, it's going to help you on fights like Hive Mind, where you have to grip multiple targets. Stuff like that is great. But then, more utility ones like this one increases duration of anti-magic shell by 100%, and any damage it absorbs heals you. So, there's a lot of magic only fights in BFA, right? So this could be really powerful too. You have to weigh the consequences, but it's really interesting. And then this one, I did not test much this weekend. I should have tested more. We're going to test in proper dungeon groups because I want to see how often this happens. But first of all, it's a 10% haste proc while you're inside your D&D, which is already good, right? Like that's already powerful. But then it has the chance to fear the mobs. So I don't know, man. I think this has to be the best one for 5-mans. Even though the other one, the neck that I have right now, increases my damage so much. This is just so freaking powerful in and out. You know what I mean? No matter what you're doing in 5-mans, it's going to be reducing the damage you take, potentially reducing the damage the group takes if you're interrupting key casts that can't be interrupted. And of course, the extra haste is always nice in the beginning of the expansion. So that is my complete take on Blood DK. I've covered a lot of stuff in previous videos. Like they buffed a lot of talents like Voracious and changed things like Death Pact and Mark of Blood and other stuff, consumption and all these things. So we covered a lot of that in previous videos. So I hope that you've caught up on that. But yeah. TLDR, able to walk into 5-mans feeling very comfortable and purely solo, I'll add. As Blood DK this early in the expansion is a great feeling because in BFA, I have to say it, I felt the complete opposite. My faith was shook in the spec. It was like really, and the other weird thing about this is I know my gear is scaled up a bit. I already have 15% haste, and that's without Bone Shield up. So I guess it's because I have haste on some of this gear. I don't really have that much. I mean, I got a trinket with haste on it, I guess. It's probably a big part of it. I guess I do have haste on most of these pieces, but I guess a big reason, this is a reason why that we lost so much haste coming out of Legion. Okay, there's two reasons. One of it is because they compacted all the stats. Okay, if you're not aware of that, they halved the amount of stat value that you got from percentage or vice versa. I don't, however you would word it. So basically, if you had 500 haste, you'd get, just theoretically, you'd get like 20% haste, or whatever. I guess it was 500 for 15%, ironically. But yeah, anyway, like they have that, right? So 500 haste would then give, say, 7.5% or something like that. So they did that because in Legion, people were achieving like 50% of the stat, and that was without corruption. I think they knew they were doing corruption the whole time, right? So they changed how the secondary allocation and stat budget worked. But then the main thing they did was they got rid of stats on Azerite gear, right? So, that was a big part of it too. So they put it on the neck, but frankly, I don't think it really ever added up to as much as people thought it was going to. So, I guess that's also why we have more haste. But I don't know. What do you guys think? I think Blood DK is really powerful. And we talked a lot about Brewmaster, probably still the best defensive tank. And we'll see what their legendaries look like. That's another spec I really want to do some testing on. But I learned a lot about Blood DK's power, and I think they have a very wide slew of potential here too. It's not just like, oh, if you do this one thing, like, on BFA, like, oh, you stack all verse and you do all this stuff. It's like, oh, then you're really, really powerful. But they have a lot of different ways that I feel like they can be powerful. And the truth might not match up the reality might not be that, but I can't get over how good this was offensively, and I can't get over how good some of these might be defensively. Like you have like this incredibly powerful, some of these incredibly powerful self-preservation tools, and then like utility tools. You know what I mean? It's just like they have a really good slew of things. And I feel like the talents themselves have got buffed in ways that I'm really excited about. Like, I don't know. It just feels like a really good time to be playing a Blood DK. So let me know what you guys think. I feel like I am very satisfied with the class right now, and I look forward to testing it more in the future. But so, like I said, unfortunately, we skipped over the thing I talked about, but we will be doing that. I promise. That'll be coming weeks. I just wanted to get some Mythic Plus in to start learning about these dungeons, but there's only so much you can solo. So if anybody out there has access to the beta and you would like to help me test Mythic Plus, please let me know. That's another reason we couldn't get anything done, because I just can't find anybody who actually wants to do this that isn't like already in push group type people. You know what I mean? So if anybody out there is interested, just please let me know. I know a lot of people probably still don't have access, probably why you're still watching the videos. But if you do and you want to help me, I would really appreciate it. Unfortunately, finding a healer is going to be the hard part. They did enable add-ons though, so maybe now more healers will be apt to try it out. So let me know what you think. But anyway, that's it. We'll see you guys in the next one, and the next one will definitely be more about other tanks. But I just wanted to make this one here to just give credit where credit's due, man. Blood DK feeling like it's back on top.